What's up, everybody? NFX here with a tutorial. No, not a tutorial, a tiptorial. Although it's going to be longer than a tip. That's what she said. I hear it. Okay, you got it. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. What's up, everybody? NFX here. Today, I'm going to give you a tip on how to use the transient processor, what it could be used for, and why. If you already know about transient processing, then this is not the tutorial for you. Um, it's not very complicated, but I'm going to take my time to just explain a few things specific to the FL Studio version, um, because it's the one I have to demo with. Actually, I take that back. I have several I could demo with because you can do the same thing in other software that's called, Transient something or another. Like I have one called Transient Master from IK Multimedia. I think that's who makes it. I don't know. I don't want to show that one though. That one much simpler. Actually, I will show it. Screw it. But what I'm going to show you, they do the same thing, and it's to shape your sound. And what does that mean? That means to add or remove volume from specific places in your sound. As an example, let's say you have a kick drum. And by the way, any sound I play today could be very loud. I apologize. It's to exaggerate the effect I'm trying to explain. Let's say you have a kick drum and it sounds like this. Okay? How would you, quote, shape that sound to improve it? Well, let's talk about that. So, with respect to the transient processor, you have two main things to deal with, the attack and the release. And I've already put this on the kick channel. And it should be everything default except for the split frequency, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Well, the attack and the release determine the beginning or the ending of the sound. Okay, the attack is generally the very beginning. Like if you were to look at this waveform, well, what I'm calling a waveform, but if you picture this first part, that's the attack because it comes first, right? Then everything after the attack is the release. Now, those of you know envelopes, you know there's attack, decay, sustain, and release. But for the purposes of this plugin, we're talking about the attack and then the subsequent release, okay? So that's what these two things do. They affect the attack and the release. Now, in the case of this particular kick drum, one of the things I can tell you might be useful in this case is to remove this release part. If we listen to it again, kind of has a, this weird noise after it. Now, it may sound good in something you're working on. I'm not trying to say this is not a good kick sound, okay? What I'm saying is we can remove that by using this release knob. Now, what we would do is we would turn it in the counterclockwise direction, which is to shorten the release. Moving it in the clockwise direction would be to increase the release. Okay, so listen to it with it all the way to the right. You should hear this sound increased instead of decreased. And you can see by the red line, which demonstrates what it's essentially doing to the sound, is it's increasing it. It's boosting it right there. Okay, and obviously that's what I said we did not want, but I wanted to point that out so we could go in the reverse direction and we could take out that particular part of that sound. So now it sounds more like a plain old kick drum versus so This is one of the ways a transient processor can be used to help shape your sound, but you have to be aware of what it is you're trying to accomplish, obviously, right? So in this case, that worked out. That worked out pretty good. Now, I want to talk about before I continue this split frequency and the reason why that's important. This is important in this particular plugin because if we go look at how the sound goes through this, we could see a diagram here. The sound comes in, then it hits a filter, okay? There's a low pass and a high pass. It splits it. So the low pass goes this way, the high pass goes this way, okay? So you could tell what happens is the low frequencies that are allowed to pass through don't get processed at all by anything else in this plugin other than the split balance and the gain at the end. But as far as the attacking and the release shapes and all that, low frequencies will bypass that by default. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that this knob, which by default would sit, I think roughly here at about 260 some hertz, we just want to turn that down. If we didn't, let's just say we turn this up. I'm going to put the balance all the way over, which will exaggerate only the output. You can hear that almost sounds like a weak slap as opposed to a kick. Whereas if I move the frequency knob back over, it sounds nice and heavy again, like a kick. Leaving this in the middle is a blend of oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a blend of 100% of the two signals together. So there you go. So I'm just suggesting you turn that down, and if it's a low frequency instrument like a kick or a bass, something like that. Not going to talk about the drive. That adds saturation if you saw this little thing here, but I don't use it for this. It's kind of an added feature, in my opinion, that is not really needed in my cases, my used cases. And then there's the gain if you want to increase the output, obviously. But we're going to talk about the attack next. Let's go to a different kick. So now let's talk about the attack. Obviously, we can make this a little cleaner by reducing the output, which I actually would like to do. But the attack, let's exaggerate that and take a listen. Now, if you look at the output meter, you could see how boosted that very initial doop doop was, right? That initial sound. We don't quite need it that much. And also, I would say that at this point, it happens so quickly, I'm not sure that it's going to transition well to what you're hearing in the video, unless you're wearing headphones and have it at a volume sufficient to hear those little details. But I will say this, you should try what I'm showing you on your own sounds and see if they help it or not. But this is pretty nice. It has a little more punch to it, I would say, in the very beginning than it used to. And we could further shape it, obviously. Now it's a real clean, punchy bass drum compared to how it was. Now you could argue that you remove some of the body, maybe some of the feeling or whatever, and I get it. Obviously, these are exaggerated so that you can hear what I'm saying, and then apply it to your mix. Because quite honestly, I've done this after I've had a song where the drums were set, and I've applied this to like the kick drum, and it made it just come out of the mix, with some tweaking. I could hear it coming out really clean. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to share this tip with you, because it was not that long ago when I had that 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 idea, and it worked. So uh, I'm just trying to pass it forward to you guys. So there you go. So there's how you would, maybe make a kick more punchier. Obviously, if you like that end sound, you could even do both. You could increase it. You want to sound like you're like in a stadium or something. I don't know. But you can definitely shape your sound from clean to heavy to muddy to whatever you want to do with it. Let's go back to this. This is the kick drum from the kit. And let me reset a few things. Let's turn everything on. What I might do in the case of this particular kick, actually, let's turn everything off. If I listen to the kick on its own, and I'm not a guy that likes kicks that sustain a lot, so I would definitely clean that one up. And I would try a little bit of attack just to see. Actually, I like it with a lot more attack. So I'm going to leave it like that. But there's how I might do, for example, my kick. Okay, let's move on to the hats, because the hats are interesting. The hats you could actually, let me bring that one up. There we go. The hats, the hats are interesting. The hats are naturally a quick attack most of the time, but you could have certain types of hats that don't have a quick attack, like a open hat, or maybe even some pedal hats. Uh, uh, don't. But a closed hat is usually, a tick, 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 tick. It's got that built in, which you can use this to enhance it. Let's take the kick out. Let's just listen to the hats. Now, I'm not worried about the split frequency. Let me turn that off. I'm not sure if my voice is clear when things are playing, but I'm not worried about the split frequency for the hats nor the snare, because the frequencies, I believe, on both of those are high enough that they're well above what's there. But if you're concerned, you can always turn that down and get that. Okay, so on this one, let's just add some attack, a lot of it, just to hear how it affects it. It does kind of make them a little bit cleaner, but is it really needed is the question you need to ask yourself. Because is just turning up the gain either here or maybe just the volume in the mixer enough to make it louder if that's what you're looking for. Remember, these are the very first attack, the boom, the very ticky tick. So you can do that. But let's talk about the release. The release for me is where the magic starts for things like hats, cymbals, those things that kind of sometimes you want them to ring out a bit. Oh, one thing I did notice is when that open hat hit, it was definitely much louder and cleaner than when the release was low. And I'll play it once with the regular release, and then when it loops over, I'll increase it. So I don't know. Would that be helpful in your mix? Maybe, maybe not. You'd have to determine that. But that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. It helps those hi hats to ring out just a little bit longer. Uh, but you might want a super quick tacky tickies. whatever. All I'm saying is shape your sound. So on this one, I kind of liked it where it was with a little bit maybe extra release. So I'm going to leave it there. And there you could see that's all we really did was we added a little bit of release. We're done. So let's go to the snare. Now let's be real about this. You want the snare to snap. So I can already tell you we're going to have to hit this attack. But this particular snare, well, let's take a listen. Let's do it. Let's do this right. This might have a little more ring to it. Ring meaning that like end part that I would want. So this might be another candidate for removing some of that. That's with it removed. That's with it back. Let's add attack. This is a very naturally attacky instrument. So while it is adding some, it's not adding a lot, even if I turn this up. Now, we could probably manipulate that a bit, but quite honestly, I think it's fine. I don't think we even need to add that much attack, if any. But it's a much cleaner snare now with the release cleaning up. Now, other snares, you may go the opposite direction. It really depends on the source sound and the mix together, right? So you just do little improvements to shape your sound. And this could be applied to bass, guitar, piano, a lot of other things, even regular samples, you can use it. Final note about transient processing. I was going to show you the another one that I use sometimes. Where is it? Here it is. Transient master. Same thing. Only this one, as you see, it only has attack, sustain, and gain. I guess it does have a couple of other options here, but it accomplishes the same type of thing. This is the Native Instruments version. Also, by the way, this is in some compressors, attack and release. If you see attack and release, essentially this is a compressor. So if you see attack and release in a compressor, and let me bring one up. Which one? Which one? Which one? This one. Here we go. Okay. So here you see another one. I don't want to demo it, but you can see there's an attack and a release parameter here. Okay. It's going to affect your sound in pretty much the same way. Okay. These are all pretty much the same thing. It's just they look different. You can even see this has gain, this has input, output. This has a gain. This one does. The FL does split the frequency. This one down here, the compressor does not. So, you're going to have differences. But basically, if you're already using a compressor and it's got attack and release in it, you might think, why not try that instead of adding a transient processor on top? If you did add a transient processor in a chain, I would probably think it's one of the earlier things you want to do in the chain just to get the sound as good in the beginning before it gets processed elsewhere. Like you might do this and then send this to a compressor with the entire drum mix or some other thing and whatever. So I think that's about it. On the way out, I'm just going to play this this little drum beat with the enhancements I have made, and bid you all a good day. And if you haven't liked this video, tell me why in the comments. And if you do like the video, please click on the like, tell people about it, or tell people about the tip. You don't even have to tell them about the video, but you could tell them where you heard it from. I don't mind. Anyway. Have a good one, you guys.